Hey everybody, it's Dick here. Today I'm going to be doing a review of my BMW F700GS Rallye Edition. On the highway you will notice that the BMW is a well-designed sport tourer. The engine has a smooth power band and it is comfortable cruising at speed. There is acceleration at the higher revs and the 6-speed transmission gives you a lot of power where you need it. Although admittedly it's a bit boring.
The F700GS is being sold as an entry-level sport tourer / adventure bike. Kind of think of it as an Adventure-lite. It has mag wheels, detuned engine from the F800GS and the F800GS Adventure. I think it's 10 less horsepower. From my ride on the two bikes when I was shopping, I felt that this was smoother. It wasn't as jerky or as idiosyncratic as the 800. I have visions of doing adventure rides, but let's be honest, there's not a lot of adventure to be done in London. And I don't know if I'm going to be shipping my bike somewhere to do a long adventure ride. So touring and sport touring is the fare of the day. If I wanted to do a little Adventure-lite, this bike could do everything I wanted to do. It could probably do more than I could do with my experience. This bike came with all the goodies. This is the Rallye Edition. Came with handguards and reinforced lever protectors. Came with ABS. You can switch on and off. Traction control. Free suspension settings. Heated grips. My first grown-up bike. What do I mean by this is my first grown-up bike? It's the first bike with a windshield. The first bike with heated grips. First bike with ABS. It's got a trip computer. God knows what that does. It's got hazard lights. It's funny. That's what I mean by a grown-up bike. It's got more things than my first car had. I have a first-generation 1995 Mazda Miata. I tell people that that's the closest car you can drive to riding a motorcycle. And as far as I know, other than those big R1200s and maybe a Goldwing, for me, this is the closest bike you can ride to driving a car. It's ride-by-wire. I don't know if there's a microsecond delay between my turning the throttle and it deciding to accelerate, but it doesn't feel as responsive as even a carbureted bike where you're just pulling a cable and letting the gas go. No vibrations. I mean, you can see that there's no vibrations when you just look at the side view mirrors. This bike is incredibly quiet. The engine is quiet. It's tame. Not tame in the fact that it won't pull your face off your skull, but it doesn't seem to have a lot of spirit. It doesn't even have a lot of soul. It does what you ask it to do, but doesn't do it with any attitude. It's so quiet that you forget you're driving a motorcycle, riding a motorcycle. See, I mean, it's like you're driving. You forget you're riding a motorcycle. You don't listen to the engine. I think that's why there's that big gear selection there to remind you you're in fifth gear. When you get down in low revs and it wants to stall, it's not going to buck, it's not going to complain, it's just going to shut off and lock your back wheel. And you could be going 40 miles an hour when that happens, and then your bike just tips over after you smash your balls into this fake tank here. So you really have to remember that you're driving a manual machine, that you're controlling the gear selection. What I've noticed about the gearing on this F700GS, and I don't know if it's just the gearing or if the gearing and the ride-by-wire, but what I found is in first gear, in most first gear, it's very jerky. Third gear and fourth gear, and I noticed this in traffic, it's either on or off. You're either going or you don't go. You can't kind of roll off the accelerator. You can't roll the throttle and have that same smooth responsiveness. I think it's the way it's communicating with the computer, but I only really noticed it between third and fourth gear. But it makes it a little uncomfortable when you're riding kind of in congested but flowing traffic. So if you're looking at these bikes as commuter bikes, you want to keep that in mind. Coming down that little lane, I noticed that jerkiness, that on and off sensation I was feeling was happening in second too. I think it must be the ride-by-wire. I'm sure it'll get better with future iterations. So I've never had the occasion to turn on the ABS. The couple of times that I've actually had to engage it, I don't have to engage it. It engages itself. It's a smart freaking computer. But the number of times that it has engaged, I should say, I've needed it. And I haven't done those off-road adventure stuff where I need to ride the skid. Can't tell you how that works, but I have the option of turning it off. I have tried the various suspension settings, and I don't know if it's just me, but I don't really notice the difference because, again, I'm out on the road. You know, the comfort setting, I put it on when I'm going on the highway. I put on normal when I'm doing stuff like this because I'd like to be a little stiffer, but the bike is incredibly well balanced, nimble, feels small. It's not small. Biggest bike I've ever owned. These 800s they call midweight. I mean, this is the F700, but it's an 800cc engine. They're calling these midweights. I guess if you're selling bikes now that have 1600 cc's, this is definitely a midweight. But in the old days, a midweight was a 500 or a 650. Size-wise, when you're moving it around in neutral or trying to park it, it's not as tall as other bikes. It's not as tall as my buddy's Tiger 800 from Triumph, but it's tall. I'm on my toes. Stoplights, I'm leaning to one side to get flat on one foot. I gotta mount it like a horse. I'm not tall. My wife tells me I'm 5'7". I think because she likes telling people she's 5'6". But for my height, which is short to average, this bike is tall. But when I'm riding it, it feels small and nimble. It's amazing. It goes a long way to the design of this bike and these style of bikes in general. Riding position is upright, knees are in front of me, nearly a right angle with my legs. Foot controls are in a comfortable spot. The F700 and the F800 and the F800 Adventure, same bike other than the tuning of the engine, little suspension modifications. The Adventure has a larger gas tank, which just gives it bigger hips behind the seat, and the spoked wheels. This bike is a 2016. It's one of those threshold bikes. It's one of the bikes that has some of the stuff that all bikes will have in the future, and some of the stuff that most bikes have now and into the past. I mean, it's got the ride-by-wire, it's got the trip computer, but it has indicators and displays at the little needle going up on a gauge. Pretty sure the 2017s had those too, but the 2018 LCD displays, ride-by-wire, all computerized. You can talk right to your bike through your headset. There's a barrel adjuster on the clutch side handlebar that lets you go through the various menu display options in the computer. Looks cool as hell, but I think it predicts the future where we're doing less and less riding. We're letting the machines do it for us. Honda has this bike that can self-level now and follow you out to a stage to do a presentation at a bike show. Don't get me wrong, I don't like falling over. So if the bike can help me not fall over, that'd be great. But you don't want to lose the soul of motorcycling. We might as well drive a Mazda Miata.